सा इशू है।
प्लीज पुट ऑफ योर कैम, अपना कैमरा बंद करे।
ये अभी ये चलेगा। अपने मोबाइल वाले से थोड़ा स्लो करा ना, अभी ये चलेगा।
सर आपको आ रही है आवाज हमारी?
हाँ, मुझे आवाज आ रही है बड़ी क्लियर। आप लोगों को आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी सर क्लियर है, अभी आवाज क्लियर है। एक्सक्यूज मी स्टूडेंट्स।
चले जी, स्टूडेंट्स को आप क्लास में बिठाए सो दैट वी कैन स्टार्ट द क्लास। फिर मुझे बता दे इफ एवरीथिंग इज रेडी, देन आई कैन स्टार्ट।
पूरे नहीं आए
स्टूडेंट्स इस वक्त थोड़े कम है सर, मेरे ख्याल में आधी क्लास है बाहर ही।
जस्ट पहले हो
सर आप पहले क्लास लेंगे कि टेस्ट लेंगे? पहले
टेस्ट लेंगे, टेस्ट बाद में लेंगे मेरे ख्याल में। मुझे नहीं समझ आती कि मैंने 10 दफा खुर्शीद साहब को लिख दिया है कि जी 12 बजे हम टेस्ट लिख करेंगे। फिर आई डोंट नो व्हाई इज
राइट
ही
सर।
आस्किंग, व्हाई इज ही आस्किंग टाइम एंड अगेन अ क्वेश्चन व्हिच आई हैव ऑलरेडी
आप
आंसर्ड 3 टाइम्स।
करीब आ जाए, क्लास होगी पहले।
तो
राइट
क्लास
सर।
स्टार्ट करें ना खुर्शीद साहब। ये आपको मैं कितनी दफा बताऊंगा कि 12 बजे क्लास स्टार्ट होगी। यार आप लोगों की पता नहीं कौन सी जबान आप समझते हैं।
क्लास
This has been already announced in the class portal that the test will start at 1200 hours. So there is no need to question time and again a question which I have answered 3 times. चाहे जितने भी लोग हैं, we can start the class. We cannot wait for the people to come at their pleasure. ये अजीब सी हमारी क्लास है कि लोग अपनी मर्जी से आते। And please log the class attendance after 5 minutes. इसरार, ये क्लास अटेंडेंस 5 मिनट के बाद बंद करे। यार ये क्लास को कोई होटल नहीं बनाना चाहिए। आई थिंक देयर शुड बी सैंक्टिटी ऑफ द क्लास। ये क्लास की
राइट सर।
अटेंडेंस ले और
बस आ
5
गए
मिनट
सर।
क्लास लॉक करे। बस आप कमरे दरवाजा बंद करे और प्लीज सो दैट वी कैन स्टार्ट।
राइट सर।
आप इनको अटेंडेंस दे, अटेंडेंस ले ले पहले, फिर मुझे अटेंडेंस ईमेल करे।
राइट सर, ठीक है सर, मैं कर दूंगा। 5 मिनट के बाद दरवाजा बंद करो, कोई एंटर नहीं होगा उसके बाद।
मतलब दिस इज वेरी स्ट्रेंज है जी कि हम अनाउंस करते कि क्लास होगी, फिर लोग पूछते जी क्लास पहले होगी कि टेस्ट पहले होगी। आई डोंट नो, हम एमएस की क्लास में बैठे ना, वी आर नॉट सिटिंग इन द
राइट
क्लास।
सर, मैंने अनाउंस कर दिया 5 मिनट के बाद डोर्स लॉक होंगे, कोई एंट्री नहीं होगी उसके बाद।
बस ये बंद करे जी, मतलब ये क्लास का एक डेकोरम भी होना चाहिए ना। ओके जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच। टुडे वी विल, ये प्रेजेंटेशन नजर आ रही है आप लोगों को?
नहीं सर, प्रेजेंटेशन नजर नहीं आ रही। छोटी सी ऊपर से एक स्लाइड नजर आ रही है।
आप नजर आ रही है कि नहीं?
नहीं सर।
Let me upload it again. I don't know what is problem.
हाँ 600 100 ही
ये
हाँ जी, now you may see the presentation.
यस सर।
Okay ji, thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I put it to the recording mode. Today, for next 1.5 hour or quarter to 2 hours, we will discuss the tender selection methods or the pre-qualification techniques. And as we discussed last time, that the employer and the risk of employer and the risk of the contractor or bidder is reciprocal. For example, if we reduce the risk of employer, it will be increasing the risk of the contractor or bidder. And that's why the contractor would prefer to go for a bidding which is a cost plus contract. In a cost plus contract we discussed, there's a matter of fact, the contractor is given some incentive or fee or commission on the actual cost of the project or the work done. And that is obvious that he will not have any risk in the cost increase in the case of cost increase. And that's very common because when we talk about the lump sum contract, on the other hand, that is the prices of the items and the work is fixed right from the day first, and all the increases or decreases are then at the cost of the contractor. So at the one end, when we are talking about the lump sum contracts, where we have, which is also called a fixed price contract, we have the price locked on the first day, and we know that this will be the unit rate, and we will be paying to the contractor as per the actual work done, and that is the volume of work done multiplied by the price, unit price. We get the total price, and then by the end of the day, we sum it up and we get the final bill or the total bill. Certainly, there are variations. I discussed these variations, like this can be a fixed fee, this can be a fixed contract, but in some cases, the government allows, in the Pakistan Engineering Council has allowed the price adjustments, and that is sometimes called the economic price adjustments. Now, these economic price adjustments are basically to cater for the inflationary trends and to cater for the increase in prices in the sum of the major inputs of the contract of the work. We cannot compensate the contractor for each and every item, because when we are in the inflation trend, then certainly every price is increasing. But as a rule of thumb, any input which has got a cumulative impact of 5% of the contract cost will be accounted for in the price adjustments. And when we develop the price indices for the payment of the price adjustments, we are taking care of those items who have 5% or more impact on the total contract price. And that's why in the most of the cases, we pay for the wages. We also pay for the cement escalation. We pay for the change in the prices of steel and many more items like bitumen and other items which are catering for 5% or more of the total contract price. But certainly there are many other items which are not having that big impact on the cost, but still the inflation is increasing their prices. But as a rule of thumb, we don't account for that increase which has got less than the inputs whose cost has got less than 5% impact on the total contract. So that is the bottom line. Now, when we talk about the cost plus, which is on the other side, then certainly the risk is taken by the employer or by the owner or by the procuring agency, because the contractor is having certain maybe a percentage over the total cost, or maybe some fee over the total cost, some incentive, like if you could complete the milestone earlier than the given time, then we may increase your fee in percentage from 10 to 15%. So that can be an incentive, and it can also be a de-incentive, or it can be like a penalty, that if the contractor is delaying the project, then in this case certainly we can have some some reduction in the fee or commission which is being paid to him. So there are many modules and there are many models which are adopted by the world employer around the world for the different kinds of projects. In Pakistan, though the FEDIC provides for this kind of incentive for early completion of the project, but unfortunately, in a very few projects, I could see that we have involved the incentive-based contracts because maybe we don't have enough money to pay to the contractor beyond the approved price. And that is why that most of the projects we have are either delayed or they are not having the desired quality. I think in Pakistan, the Planning Commission needs to bring this culture that they should provide some contingency for the incentive to the contractors for early completion of the projects. Though it's not very easy, but I believe that this would create a culture which will ultimately improve the project delivery in Pakistan. Now, I discussed this that how the art of selecting a contract type is, if you see that at one hand you have the identified procurement risks, and then you have the technology challenges, then you have the specification and drawings and the project life cycle. So if you just see at the bottom, you have the fixed price, and at the other end, you have the cost.
Sir, Inayat here, I have a question, sir. Sir, you have mentioned that there is 5% price adjustment in a product or in an item where price goes or inflation goes beyond 5%. That could be adjusted in price adjustment. So, sir, do you think in GB we always receive such claims from our contractors? Do you see we actually observe this very condition of 5% below or above? Or
I think,
officers,
and I thank you. I think I couldn't explain well. I mentioned that any input which has got an impact of 5% or more in the total cost of contract will be counted for price adjustments. It's not the inflation. जो भी इनपुट जिसकी कीमत, मिसाल के तौर पे अगर आपका 1 करोड़ रुपए का प्रोजेक्ट है और उसमें सीमेंट जो हम यूज करेंगे वो 5 लाख या उससे ज्यादा का इंडेक्स उसका बनता हो, यानी 5% या उससे ज्यादा कुछ में सीमेंट इस्तेमाल होता हो, तो फिर उस सूरत में सीमेंट की प्राइस एडजस्टमेंट जो है वो पे होगी. इसी तरह अगर तो जब हम इंडेक्सेस वर्कआउट करते हैं किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट के लिए, तो एज अ मैटर ऑफ फैक्ट वी ट्राई टू डिटरमिन द एक्चुअल कंजम्पशन ऑफ दैट मटेरियल which is likely to be happen in that project. मिसाल के तौर पे अगर हमारे प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर स्टील जो है वो 20% ऑफ द टोटल प्राइस है, तो स्टील का फिर इंडेक्स 0.2 या 20% हो जाएगा. तो व्हाट आई मीन टू से that any adjustment in price for an input will be subject to the condition that the cost of that input in the project should be 5% or more. अगर इससे मिसाल के तौर पे आप देखें ना, आप इन्फ्लेशन में आप देखें तो आपकी आयरन मंगरी, ये जो चटखनियां है, ये भी महंगी हो रही होती है. आपकी जो है दरवाजे भी महंगे हो रहे होते हैं. लेकिन you might have seen that in many cases we don't pay the escalation or price adjustment for the woodwork because the woodwork is constituting a very small part of the total contract price. So the rule of thumb is that any item or any input which has 5% or more contribution in the total cost of the project or total price of the project from the bidder perspective, then this kind of item shall be paid for price adjustments. Or normally हम देखते हैं कि it includes most of the time we pay for cement, we pay for bitumen, we pay for steel bars, we pay for the wages, increase in wages.
जी सर, सर मैं नजीम बात कर रहा हूँ सर. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि 20 मिलियन के जो कॉस्ट के प्रोजेक्ट होते हैं सर, उसमें तो एज पर लॉ जो है ना वो एस्केलेशन की प्रोविजन होती नहीं है, लेकिन वो सपोज तो ये किया एक
now
मिनट
this
सर,
has
मैं
been
क्वेश्चन
revised to
कंप्लीट
50 million. This has now revised to 50 million, or any project which has got a duration of less than 1 year.
सर क्वेश्चन ये कि अभी तो इनहांस होके 50 मिलियन हो गया, लेकिन बट द प्रोजेक्ट कॉस्टिंग बिलो 50 मिलियन आर सपोज टू बी कंप्लीटेड विद इन 1 ईयर पीरियड, बट जबकि हमारे यहाँ ये होता है कि हम 1 ईयर की पीरियड में हम उनको जो है ना एलोकेशन नहीं
देखिए
दे पाते हैं, तो वो जो है हमारे कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स की प्ली ये है कि एज पर लॉ तो ये है कि 50 मिलियन फंडिंग करेंगे तो कंप्लीट होंगे, अदरवाइज जो है ना इंटरेस्ट उसमें भी जो है
it would depend on the genuine. I don't think in general we have completed projects of 50 million or less even in 9 months. This again would depend on the nature of the project and your planning. But I don't think that a project which is 50 million should take more than 1 year. This is not. This may be then an imperfect selection of the contractor. Your process of selection may be inherently very weak, because to me 50 million is some work which must be, because when we talk about the Pakistan Engineering Council, it takes a very holistic view of the rights of the contractor and employer, and they believe that any work which is 50 million should be completed within 1 year time. But if you believe that the time has been increased, then definitely you will have to pay the price adjustment. If the increase in we will discuss, as there is a complete one lecture on the price adjustments towards the end of this. But certainly the bottom line is that any project which is having 50 million or less price or having a duration of 1 year or less will not be counted for. And the reason is that we believe that contractor is a logical person. He can, at least based on the historical data, he can predict the price adjustments in the 1 year at least. And beyond 1 year, you see that if the project is more than 1 year, even the planning commission is not giving you the adjustment money for the first year. So that's why the rationality is that a project of 50 million must be completed within 1 year, and there should be no delays. Yes, if this delay is due to the possession of site, or this delay is due to some weather problem, or this delay is due to the employer reasons, we will discuss these in the extension of time and claims part of the contract, that how the employer then has the responsibility to pay the price adjustments if the delay in the duration is beyond 1 year, and that is on the part of employer. So certainly in that case, you have to pay the price adjustment for the extended period. For the work which has been executed after 1 year, then you have to pay the adjustment of that part as a rule of law. But certainly is a general principle, and a project which is likely to be completed in 1 year, or which is having a cost of less than 150 million or 50 million, will not be paid for price adjustment. There can be many plus and minus of this argument. I don't say that it is a good decision or it is a bad decision, but certainly you have to draw a line, because then even a project of 1 month would like to have the adjustments, and a project of 6 months would also like to have, and the people would deliberately delay the work so that they can have the 1 महीने का काम है, वो 6 महीने का आपने टाइम दिया, वो नहीं करेगा, आखिरी 1 महीने में करेगा, 5 महीने वैसे टाइम गुजारेगा, so that he can get the price adjustment at the end. And normally the inflation, you see that these prices are increasing with every month. So this basic principle, which has been set by the Pakistan Engineering Council, also challenges our project management, and also trust our project management, that projects of 50 million, which is not a very big project in general circumstances, should be completed in 1 year. So on the one hand, we have the fixed price contract, and you see that in fixed price contract, you have lesser risk, and the procurement and specifications are well defined. And when you go to the other end, like cost plus contracts, then definitely the risk is high, and also the specification and drawings are also sometimes changing, because the cost is not fixed, and there is always a tendency in which the specification and drawings are frequently changed by the consultants or by the bidders, and that may create an additional cost for the employer. And that's why we always prefer to have the fixed price contract or lump sum contract, because we are sure that the project will be completed within the finally approved price. In between, which is a mid-level risk or complications in the time and material contracts, we discussed the three basic types, that is fixed price or lump sum. The other was cost plus, and the third was time and material. Now, time and material is a bit risky, but not more riskier than the cost plus, because in time and material, we have at least a good control over material prices, because we are procuring the material ourselves, or maybe it is procured by the bidder in the consultation with the employer. But certainly the control is relatively better than the cost plus, because the actual price and actual time, and I told you that most of the time this type of contract or payment procedure is adopted for the services or for some intellectual work like painting work, some special design work, design and construction, in which we need to have a bigger inputs of time. Now, the traditional selection methods in competitive tendering generally propose models for the appraisal of the competitive value of the tenders based only on the evaluation of factors which have an immediate financial impact. So more traditionally, we all see that the cost is made as a base for the decision for the ultimate award of the project. And this is more common, and we sometimes call it in PEPRA, we call it single envelope procedure, in which we don't go for the technical evaluation, and rather we develop the specifications, and we believe that the specifications are very simple, and the people who are participating in the bidding process have the capacity based on their registration with the Pakistani Engineering Council and so on. And then finally, the financial impact becomes more important. But the challenge with this method is, which is very commonly observed by all of us, that there is always a low bidder dilemma. And the low bidder dilemma means that in a bid to grab the contract, the contractor would try to go for the low price, and this low price or lowest bid sometimes would make the project very difficult to execute, and we will be faced with many challenges if the final price or the lowest price quoted by the bidder is not reasonable. And that's why the FEDIC and also the Pakistan Engineering Council demands that if the bid is seriously unbalanced, and that is not within the reasonable limits of the engineer estimate, then certainly the employer has the freedom to ask for additional collaterals and the working for the bid, unless the employer is not secured and the employer is not satisfied that the bid quoted has been practical implications, then they should not accept it. We will discuss this in the FEDIC part of the contract. Now, sometimes we go for the pre-qualifications before we will discuss the pre-qualification in details, which is adopted by the Pakistan Engineering Council, that instead of going for open bidding, we try to see that if we can bring a panel of prospective bidders which have at least the minimum level of the competency and credibility which we need for that project. And that is where the pre-qualification is exercised. And it's more advisable to go for the pre-qualification if the project is of non-routine nature, and if there are challenges in execution of the project and you need to have very high-performing contractors. So in that case, I think the pre-qualification is a good solution. This is based on the assumption that the pre-qualification exercise eliminates all incompetent contractors and guarantees that a pre-qualified lowest bidder will be successfully executing the project. Now, this again is a kind of a challenge, because you might have seen those who have done bigger projects that even sometimes the pre-qualified contractor is having challenges in the execution of the project, because most of the time the data with the pre-qualified contractor would provide is not relevant, it's not correct, reliable, and that's why the pre-qualifications become very challenging. So though we presume that the panel or the pre-qualified contractors have the minimum competency which is required for their project to be successfully executed, but still there are challenges in the pre-qualification process, because you believe that the contractor who has got maybe 90% marks, 90 out of 100 in the pre-qualification, is treated as par with another contractor which has got 70%. So certainly this is not equal, because one of these contractor may be having the top marks, may be very good in terms of human resource, in terms of machinery and equipment, in terms of experience and planning of the project, and so on. And the other contractor, which is on the lower end, for example, obtaining the minimum qualification marks, may be having a very limited resources. So certainly the pre-qualification has got many challenges, and but still I think it's better that instead of going for the single stage, single envelope open bidding, it's better to have the pre-qualification. It has some problem, but certainly it's better than the open bidding. The reality, however, is that the contractor pre-qualification alone is not a definite indicator of project success. So there is you might have experienced this problem. जिन लोगों ने pre-qualified contractors से अपने projects कराए हैं, so you might have experienced the problem that even a pre-qualified contractor many times could not deliver well. And though we had a very robust pre-qualification systems, but still the performance of the contractor was not good. Awarding a construction contract to the lowest bidder without considering other factors can lead to the cost and time overruns and other problems like low bidder dilemma. And I discussed this, that if you just go for the lowest bid or lowest price as a decision or criteria for award the work, then certainly this will create a lot of problems. And you might have seen that many times a low bid becomes even more than the good bid, because then you have the delays, you have the cost overruns, you have a lot of problems with the quality, and all these problems together then make a brick cost increase sometimes. So that's why that you have to be as a procuring agency and a procuring officer, executing officer, you have to be very careful to see that what can be the best way to execute the project. यहाँ पे I would like to see that Inayat or any other who is in the class can share their experience of pre-qualification with the class. जो आपने कोई pre-qualification की है कुछ काम के लिए, what your experience has been and how would you like to see that experience, and share that with the class, and how can then you recommend some of the changes in these pre-qualification systems. Over to the class. Anybody who would like to share his experience or her experience while using the pre-qualified bidders?
Sir, may I, sir?
जी जी.
मैं सर थोड़ा सा इसको ब्रीफली थोड़ा बता भी दूं कि प्री क्वालिफिकेशन और इसमें हमारा क्या बेसिक डिफरेंस है ओपन कॉम्पिटिटिव बिडिंग में, सर थोड़ा सा क्लास को फॉर अ व्हाइल.
अजी आप
बताइए कि आपका दो चीजें ना इसमें आपकी, एक होती है कॉम्पिटिटिव बिडिंग जो हम आमतौर पे कर रहे हैं कि सिंगल स्टेज 1 एनवेलप, सिंगल स्टेज 2 एनवेलप, ये एक बिडिंग का एक प्रोसीजर पूरी है. एक होता है उससे पहले एक प्रोसीजर होता है प्री क्वालिफिकेशन. इंजीनियर साहिबान यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं, बिडिंग से पहले आप प्री क्वालिफाई करते हैं, उसके बाद बिड की तरफ आते हैं. प्री क्वालिफिकेशन का मतलब ये है कि आप जी
स्मॉलर प्रोजेक्ट्स और लार्जर प्रोजेक्ट्स होते हैं. स्मॉलर प्रोजेक्ट होता है उनमें जो आप बात कर रहे हैं कि सिंगल स्टेज
वन एनवेलप वाला होता है, जरूरत नहीं पड़ती कॉम्प्लिकेटेड. यस, जहां कॉम्प्लिकेटेड प्रोजेक्ट होते हैं मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम हम प्री क्वालिफिकेशन की तरफ जाते हैं, जहां पे आप ये समझते हो कि हमें जो एक्सपर्टीज है टेक्निकल या उसकी आपकी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर की वो जरा हायर साइड पे है, तो उनको आप प्री क्वालिफिकेशन का मतलब इसी तरह है कि जिस तरह आप कहीं पे स्क्रीनिंग करते हैं किसी बंदे की एग्जाम में, हम सीएसएस में पहले स्क्रीनिंग की जाती है, उसके बाद पूरे 12 पेपर दिए जाते हैं. जो स्क्रीनिंग का प्रोसीजर है बेसिकली ये कि आप देखते हैं उसकी फाइनेंशियल वायबिलिटी, उस कॉन्ट्रैक्टर की, उसकी टेक्निकल एक्सपर्टीज, उसका ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड, उसका उस फील्ड के अंदर एक्सपीरियंस कितना है. तो ये सारी चीजें चेक की जाती हैं, कहीं पे बैंकक्रप्ट तो नहीं है, ब्लैकलिस्ट तो नहीं हुआ है किसी प्रोजेक्ट को लेके, तो इसका ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड क्या है, ये सारी चीजें देखने के बाद आप प्री क्वालिफिकेशन की तरफ जाते हो। 3 भी सिलेक्ट किए जा सकते हैं, 4 भी हैं, जितने आपके
क्वालिफिकेशन में वही कॉन्ट्रैक्टर सेलेक्ट किए जाएंगे जिन जो रजिस्टर्ड है या एनीबॉडी कैन?
नहीं सर, रजिस्टर्ड तो है ना, रजिस्टर्ड तो हर प्रोजेक्ट, मतलब हर टेंडर के लिए, हर आपके
कैटेगरीज होती है ना सर?
हाँ, उसमें सी से लेके ए तक वो आपका एक है ना, C6 से आपके वो C1-2 तक वो आपके हैं। वो डिपेंड करता है कि आप कितने एक्सपीरियंस में, बाकायदा इस हद तक है कि आपके PWD में या कम्युनिकेशन वर्क डिपार्टमेंट के आपके इंजीनियर्स जो हैं वो ACR तक लिखते हैं, आपके कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स के ACR तक लिखा जाता है। लेकिन अनफॉर्चुनेटली हमारे यहाँ ऐसा होता नहीं कि कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के ACR लिखे जाते हैं कि इसकी क्या परफॉर्मेंस रही है, वो रही है, तो उस बुनियाद पे दिया जाता है उसको जो रजिस्ट्रेशन मिलती है। C6 पे मतलब वो ऊपर से नीचे की तरफ आता है। C6 में उसने अपने आप को इंडेक्ट करवाया, उसके बाद वो C5, C3, C2 उसकी परफॉर्मेंस और उसकी इकोनॉमिक वाइबिलिटी के हिसाब से, टेक्निकल एक्सपर्टीज के हिसाब से, उसके फर्म में कितने बंदे हैं, कितने इंजीनियर्स हैं, ये सारा देख के फिर आपकी पाकिस्तान इंजीनियरिंग काउंसिल उसको अवार्ड करती है। देखिए ना, बैंक स्टेटमेंट आपका है, उसका प्रीवियस एक्सपीरियंसेस है, किसी प्रोजेक्ट में उसने काम किया, फाइनेंशियल वाइबिलिटी तो सीधा सीधा है कि आप बैंक स्टेटमेंट, किसी भी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर का बैंक स्टेटमेंट निकलवाएंगे तो पता चलेगा कि फाइनेंशियली कितना वाइबल है, कितनी ट्रांजेक्शन हो गई उसकी, उससे तो पता चल जाता है।
एक और चीज भी है कि कोई भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जब इस तरह का होता है तो कुछ सर्टेन अमाउंट पहले से जमा भी करवाता है कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, और
कंडीशन होती है ना
सर शफकत, ये प्री क्वालिफिकेशन पे आके थोड़ा कोई प्रोजेक्ट ऐसा जिसमें किया हो। सर शफकत ऐड कर लेंगे सर।
Okay जी, please carry on. जो भी ऐड करना, I would like to share your experience with the class जिन्होंने किया है। शफकत साहब, please carry on.
सर मैं मीर नजीम, असिस्टेंट चीफ PND डिपार्टमेंट से। सर हम जो बिडिंग प्रोसेस करते हैं सर, उसमें प्री क्वालिफिकेशन में तो सारी चीजों को बड़ा जो है ना केयर से देख के जब शॉर्टलिस्ट करते हैं, लेकिन फिर भी सर वो जब फाइनेंशियल बिड की तरफ हम चले जाते हैं तो उसमें वो इर्रेशनल रेट्स कोट करते हैं सर। ये बड़ा चैलेंज आ जाता है। इधर से तो हम उनकी स्क्रूटनी करके अच्छी कंपनियां आगे आ जाती हैं, लेकिन फिर जाके आगे डंडी मारते हैं वो फाइनेंशियल बिड में सर। अभी हम देख रहे थे, हमने ट्रांसपोर्ट मेंटेनेंस का एक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट अवार्ड किया था, उसमें जो प्री क्वालिफिकेशन होकर 5-6 बिडर्स आगे आ गए, लेकिन उसमें सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज ये आ गया कि वो पता नहीं किस तरीके से पता करते हैं कि इस डिपार्टमेंट में किस किस्म की मेंटेनेंस की जरूरत है, कितनी गाड़ियां पुरानी है, कितनी नहीं है, तो इस हिसाब से जो है ना वो रेट्स, इर्रेशनल रेट्स कोट करते हैं। तो इसको रोकने के लिए क्या मैकेनिज्म हो सकता है ताकि जो प्री क्वालिफाइड जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स हैं वो रेट्स भी रेशनल रेट्स कोट करे, ताकि जो है ना फिर आगे 2 नंबरी ना हो। थैंक यू सर।
Okay, thank you very much, Nazeem Saab. I think this is a major challenge that how to, and this is happening not only to you, it's happening to all the government departments, even in universities we face the same kind of cartels. What I would suggest that the first principle I think is to have the very reasonable engineer estimate. I mean, even if you are going for some items like repair of the vehicles, there must be some engineer estimate. And that is the requirement of your PEPRA rules also, that whenever you go for a bidding process, there should be a fair estimate of that work, whether that is a repair work, that is a supply work, or that is a contracted work. Like construction of a building or a road, or repair and maintenance of the vehicles, or that is some supply items. So the first fundamental principle is that there must be a well-defined estimate of that item, number one. And now this estimate has to be very correct and rational, because it should not be either on a very high side or on a low side, because this would become then a base for decision. what normally happens that the engineer's estimate are not prepared in time, and then it is not coupled with the market analysis many times, and we don't go to collect the original quotations and original quotes of the price to see that what can be the with the most rational price. Number one. Number two, I think the pre-qualification process or a tendering process which you do should be very confidential, in the sense that I have seen that in most of the cases, the lower staff of the organizations give them the information about the bidders, and even sometimes they make the pooling and cartelling, which is very common in Pakistan. So the second, and that's why I tell my director of works that the entire bidding process should be done by your office, and everything should be in lock and key of the director, so that nobody else could know that who have received the bidders and who is coming to bid, and so on. The third very important process, which I think, is to see that whether the bids quoted are reasonable or not, because the lowest does not make lowest alone does not make the reasonability. So it's not necessary that if a person has quoted that the price which is much below the estimate of engineers, then it is not a reasonable price. And the Pakistan Engineering Council or the FIDIC has quoted such kind of bid as a seriously unbalanced. Seriously unbalanced means that the price is either very much high as compared to the engineer estimate, or it is too low to ensure that the project will be executed in that price. So in both cases, this can be seriously unbalanced. Now, if the price is much above, like more than 10% above the engineer's estimate, then certainly this project, this tendering process cannot be executed, and we will re-tender it based on the high prices. The second option then can be that if the price is say less than 10% of the engineer's estimate, then certainly again it would require the guarantee from the bidder that he has not quoted the irrational price. Now, what can be the process in such case? The first and the immediate action which the department needs to take is that they would send a letter to the contractor to justify the prices. In case of works, it's very easy, because we go for the rate analysis and we say, okay, if you say that the concrete 100 CFT can be executed with, say, 400 rupees, and we say it is 600, then how can you justify it? Please give us the rate analysis. So this is very easy to see that whether the rate analysis is based on rational market or not, prices or not. But in case of other items where you cannot have a very firm estimate, like maintenance and other things, I think that would become a bit challenging. But certainly a committee of the senior people should see the reasonability of bid quoted by the bidder based on the engineer estimate. And then if further, for example, the bidder, the employer feels that the bid is still not very reasonable, they may demand for additional collateral. They may demand for additional security. And I really like the approach of KEPRA, because they have written in their law the rules, which has been used by the finance department, that any bid which is more than 10% below the engineer's estimate or the estimated cost will be accompanied by an additional 8% earnest money by the bidder. So right at the beginning, the bidder would be very seriously looking into it, that if the bidder is going for more than 10% below the price or estimated price, then certainly they have to put an additional 8% bid security. And you know that this bid security becomes a big amount. 1 करोड़ का अगर काम है तो जाहिर अगर वो 2% करे तो 2 लाख का अर्निस्ट मनी है, लेकिन अगर उसकी प्राइस जो है वो 10% इंजीनियर एस्टिमेट से कम है, तो certainly in that case he has to pay 1 million as a earnest money or bid security. So I think it's not very easy to avoid this kind of bidding, but certainly I think that engineers estimate a correct estimation and a process which can make the contractor more accountable can be, we have very bad experiences like in one of the contract in our university, Allama Iqbal Open University, in early 2000, I think. There was a low bid, which was, there was a science complex. This building was very good building, something like 52,000 square feet. And the contractor, unfortunately, he was a good contractor. I mean, but I think he was out of market for some time and he couldn't understand the actual pricing. And right at the beginning, he quoted a price very low, and then we brought the entire estimation and everything. But still, he was adamant that I can do this project and I'll be, and we got all the collaterals and everything. But still, it continued a very problematic project because you see that there was high inflation in the meanwhile in 2004 or 5. And we face a lot of challenges in that project, and ultimately there was arbitration and so on. So I think the low bid beyond certain limit is always a challenge, and in a challenge for the executing agency as well as for the contractor. And we should discourage it by deploying some mechanism in the tender document. And I have given you some of the examples that how can we prevent it. But certainly the challenge is that we cannot prevent it altogether because it would require लॉट ऑफ, मुझे याद है कि जब केपी गारमेंट ने ये 10% का वो किया, तो मुझे याद है कि फिर बिडर करते थे 9.9999, अब वो कहीं 9 रुकते नहीं थे, तो वो 9 पॉइंट वाला बिलो, तो दिस रियली बिकम अ जोक इवन कि जी हमारा तो 10% बिलो नहीं है, हमारा तो 10% से कम है। तो उस पे भी फिर गवर्नमेंट ने कहा कि जी जो 2 decimal point तक होगा तो उसको हम राउंड करेंगे 10 पे, and that would be considered as a 10% below. So I think this is the challenge for the procuring agencies and for the engineers, but this challenge would continue. But I think if you are fair in your approach and you have a very...
सर एक और क्वेश्चन ये है कि सर, एक तो खैर हम कुछ चीजों को जैसे आपने बता दिया कि हम जो है ना वो इंजीनियरिंग एस्टीमेट के थ्रू काफी हद तक हम कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं, लेकिन सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज जो ये है सर कि माफियाज जो मैन्यूवरिंग करती हैं सर सिस्टम्स के साथ। अभी हमारा कॉन्ट्रैक्टर एसोसिएशन है सर, द कॉन्ट्रैक्टर एसोसिएशन इज प्लेइंग एज अ रोल ऑफ माफिया इन बिडिंग इन गिलगित बल्तिस्तान कॉन्ट्रैक्ट। तो वो सर ये करते हैं कि सिलेक्टेड कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स को अच्छे रेट्स पे जो है ना आगे ले आते हैं, बाकियों को जो है ना और अपनी मर्जी के रेट्स कोट करते हैं। तो इसमें बड़ा चैलेंज है कि इन माफियाज के साथ किस तरीके से डील किया जाए ताकि जो है ना फेयर और ट्रांसपेरेंट जो है ना बिडिंग प्रोसेस चले। अब सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज ये है कि अब बिडिंग एसोसिएशन जो है ना, जो 4-5 बड़े कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हैं, वो आपस में सुलह मशवरा करके एक बंदे को आगे करते हैं और वो जो है ना अच्छे रेट्स पे उठाया जाता है, जबकि फेयर कंपटीशन होती नहीं।
देखिए, आई एग्री विद यू, दीस कार्टेल्स आर नॉट ओनली इन पाकिस्तान, ये पूरी दुनिया में कार्टेल्स होते हैं। बट मेरा अप्रोच इसमें ये है कि हम इंस्टेड के वो माफियाज हमारी प्रॉब्लम्स बनाए, हम उनके साथ बैठ के कुछ रूल ऑफ द गेम तय करें। मिसाल के तौर पे हम उनको ये कहें कि ठीक है जी, हम उस प्रोसेस को तो नहीं रोक सकते कि आप जिस तरह, लेकिन आप कुछ एथिक्स को भी सामने लाए कि फॉर एग्जांपल ये ना हो कि एक बंदा सारे काम ले, ये भी ना हो कि रेट्स आपके इतने खराब हो कि कल कंट्रैक्टर जो है, तो मेनी टाइम दी प्री क्वालिफिकेशन हेल्प्स यू। हमने ये देखा है कि हमारे यहाँ तो खैर कभी ये नहीं, यूनिवर्सिटीज में इनकी इतनी स्ट्रांग प्रेजेंस नहीं है, यूनियंस वगैरह की, एसोसिएशंस की जो कंट्रैक्टर्स की है। बट सर्टनली जब मैं पीडब्ल्यूडी सीएनडब्ल्यू में था तो वहाँ तो ज़ाहिर है इनके अपने पूरा एक माफिया होते हैं, इनकी गाड़ियाँ और इनका जो, और उसको डिस्करेज करने का यही तरीका है कि हम ट्रांसपेरेंसी को जो है वो इनकरेज करें, अच्छे कंट्रैक्टर्स को हम इनकरेज करें और क्वालिटी वर्क को इनकरेज करे, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को सही मानों में इम्प्लीमेंट करे, अगर हमारे एंड पे कोई कमी है तो हम उसको भी एड्रेस करें। और इसको आगे फेडिक में हम पढ़ेंगे कि जो हमारी जिम्मेदारियां हैं, और उसमें आपको नजर आएगा कि हम अपनी जिम्मेदारियां उस तरह पूरी नहीं करते। लिहाजा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को तो कई दफा समझता भी नहीं है, और अगर उसको समझता है तो उसको यकीन नहीं आता कि कोई इस पे अमल करेगा। तो आई थिंक We can work with the contractor associations to make some good things together, but certainly, they are not very well-educated people. There are mafias, there are cartels, they work unions, associations, elections, and all these together then make a big cartel. And that is not only problem with GB, it's problem everywhere. Even Pakistan Contractor Association जो है वो खुद एक बहुत बड़ा group है. I'll not call it mafia because these unions or associations are legal in the sense that they are allowed by the government and by the law. But unfortunately, they are using this strength to sometimes blackmail the employers and so on. So there is no immediate solution to these problems. Certainly, this is a culture problem. I remember when I was very young, uh, I mean 40 years back or 30 years back, in our society, the most credible people used to be the contractors. They were coming from very good families. They were having a lot of good resources. Even their families were very strong. And people would say that this is a contractor family, which is represented by very strong values. But unfortunately, over the years, I think all the unemployed people have become one way or the other way contractors. And I think contractor is the most easy job to do in the sense that you can just have few papers and the Pakistan Engineering Council would give you the registration, and that would give you an entitlement to start the work and to bid. And many people I have seen, not many, I think a majority of the contractors who have been registered are not doing anything except getting the money and the bribes and the rings and the pooling. And they most of the time you would see even they don't have their own car. They would come in the public transport and then they would sit in the side of the contract and then they would start कि जी हमें कोई पैसा दे अगर उनको 10,000 रुपए भी ठेकेदार से मिले तो उनका काम दिहाड़ी लग जाती है तो बहुत सारे हजारों की तादाद में बदकिस्मती से if there are 300,000 contractors registered with the Pakistan Engineering Council, even it's more now. I'm talking of the figures of 1 year back when I was contesting this election. So I believe that that might be now 400,000. I don't see that 100,000 would be having the capacity to be qualified or to be registered at the. So this also brings us to the second point that the registration part of process of the contractors in Pakistan is very defective. There is no robust system in which the capacity of the contractor is judged and assessed. And you all know that this is a very a very strange game happening around us. So some of the issues we can find with the low price contracts is, for example, some of the research findings are that although the client will normally seek a low price, this must be done with the discretion, as a price that is too low may inhibit the attainment of the client other objectives of quality and speed or progress. So that is again the question that if you are going for the low price, then certainly it can be a challenging for you. Low price tender, however, will not necessarily reflect the true cost of the project. And this I think I have already shared with you my example that a contract which was apparently low price, when finished, we had to put a lot of additional money to correct the quality. Then we paid him additional items, a lot of additional items, and many more cost was incurred, which otherwise could be averted if the project was not low bid dilemma. And many times you see that the delay itself has got a big price. It's got an opportunity cost because the benefit which we couldn't had due to delay of that project. For example, मुझे याद है कि हमारा एक जो फ्लाइट्स का प्रोजेक्ट था 32 ऑफिसर फ्लाइट्स का we delayed for 2 years, and just if we just count the rental value which we paid to the employees for the hiring of their houses outside the university, it was in millions. So it's not only the price of quality, it is also have the opportunity cost, because the opportunity which we couldn't had due to delay of that project by 2 years was certainly having some benefits, and these benefits were foregone. So that is again a cost. And that's why we say that the opportunity cost is basically the benefit. It's not cost, it is the benefit which is converted into cost if not achieved or availed. The contractor submitting the lowest fixed fee is not necessarily the one representing the best value for money of the client. And this I already shared, that the lowest bid is not necessarily to be the best value, because at the end of the day, you would see that the lowest bid has not brought the value which you need, and you rather put many more cost even if the project is completed. Indeed, the majority of current selection method exhibit constraint and over-reliance on principle of acceptance of the lowest bid. So this is a common problem. This is from one of the research, not only the Pakistan story, it is the story around the world and the developing countries, that we go for lowest bid price many times, and that lowest bid price becomes a challenge in achieving the quality and the progress and the kind of value we want to achieve out of that investment. Now, the selection process, why we select the contractor and why this whole process is done, certainly it's a very difficult process. A contractor who can supply a product for the lowest possible price and can demonstrate the reputation for good quality. So the first and very important thing is that we have to see that the quality which ultimately is delivered, there is an efficient organization, that there is enough human and non-human resources with the contractor, and we can ensure that the project would be completed as per the desired attributes. The ability to complete the work in time or on time, that's again very important, that when we are selecting a contractor, we believe that the project will be completed within the given time. A strong financial standing, that the contractor has strong financial capacity to manage his working capital and other kind of resources so that he can complete the project easily. And the expertise suited to the size and type of the project. For example, if the project is very complex, the project is very large, it's having a larger extent, it's covering a larger geographic area, or it is having a very complex design, then certainly we would like to see that the contractor has that capacity. Now, if you look at the 5 or 6 attributes, more or less these have been made as a baseline for the pre-qualification of contractors by PC also. Public sector clients are most often constrained to select the lowest evaluated bidder other than in exceptional circumstances, which makes shortlisting all the more important. So even if you are not going for 3 envelope procedures and you are not going, so it's better to have a shortlisting sometime. However, it is increasingly recognized that the lowest bid is not necessarily the most economic solution. We discussed this. Selection of a contractor involves more than merely opting for the lowest evaluated bid, and we will discuss this. Now, the other option can be multi-criteria selection, that instead of just having the cost as a baseline for the selection of the bidders, there can be other criterion as well. For example, the financial strength, the past experience, the project management plan, execution plan, the work capacity of the project of the contractor, the quality and experience of the technical personnel, and so on. The project characteristics like the work schedule, type, value, duration, complexity, location, contract type, and variations between the contractor bid price, and so on. So these are some of the other criterion besides the cost, which can be then based for the selection of the contractors. Now, the price, the lowest standard price tends to attract clients' interest as a superior to other criteria. That's why we many times give the price a very high value, maybe 50% or sometimes even more than 50%, because you see that price is a very basic fundamental decision criteria. And then the financial capability, which is the financial capacity of the bidder to see that the contractor has enough resources, for example, the credit line support, he has got his own resources for managing the working capital, Insufficient financial standing of a successfully selected contractor can lead to the late completion and unsatisfactory quality of work. And this is very common in Gilgit-Baltistan, which I have seen that the project initially, the people would give you a very good financial statements. But when it comes to the execution, they would say that we don't have the money and we need a lot of resources and so on. So we need to see that what are the financial statements, like the ratio analysis, what is their liability and assets statement, what is their turnover, annual turnover of the work, what is the tool and plants, and so on. And the second can be the financial references from the banks. For example, what has been the credit line available to them, which is approved, because the credit line gives a strength that in case the contractor is not having his money, he can borrow the money from the bank, and that limit is very important. We will discuss this in later part of the lecture. The past performance is really very important because, again, unfortunately, when we are looking at the past performance, we don't get references. I remember then when I was director, we used to even see the projects at the locations where they have executed it. We would like to see with the clients. We would like to see with the employers to see that what are their feelings and what are their and we would like to get the confidential reports in person from the clients and the employers, so that if there is any issue with the contractor, we can document that, and if we are not qualifying the contractor based on that, then certainly we should have the proof and the evidence. So the past experience of the similar work is also very important, because it does not mean मैंने ये देखा है कि लोग अपने experience में 4 काम मिला के एक काम बना लेते हैं. But the principle says that if you are qualifying a person for a project, the work which you would consider should have a minimum volume of the work for which you are experienced. मिसाल के तौर पे एक कंट्रैक्टर ने 4 काम किए हैं और हर काम की मालियत कोई 2 करोड़ रुपए है, और वो कहते हैं कि जी मैंने 8 करोड़ रुपए का काम किया है. तो प्री क्वालिफिकेशन या पास्ट एक्सपीरियंस का प्रिंसिपल ये है कि आप अगर उसको 8 करोड़ रुपए के काम के लिए प्री क्वालिफाई कर रहे हैं, तो उसने उस जैसा काम जो है वो एक काम या 2 काम या जिसकी मालियत 8 करोड़ या उससे ज्यादा हो. ये नहीं है कि 4 काम मिला के वो 8 करोड़ का. And this has been happening unfortunately in the pre-qualification के जी वो 4-5 को मिला के कहते कि जी मेरा. So the past experience is very important of similar volume and nature of work. एक हाई राइज बिल्डिंग है, एक आदमी ने हाई राइज बिल्डिंग बनाई ही नहीं है, उसने एक प्राइमरी स्कूल तो 10 बना लिए हैं या 20 बना लिए हैं, लेकिन एक हाई राइज बिल्डिंग उसने नहीं बनाई. अब इस सूरत में अगर वो एक हाई राइज बिल्डिंग के लिए आप उसको प्री क्वालिफाई, मिसाल के तौर पे आपके यहाँ एक कॉलोनी आप बना रहे हैं जिसमें 5 स्टोरी या 6 स्टोरी आप बिल्डिंग्स बना रहे हैं, और एक आदमी जिसने सिर्फ प्राइमरी स्कूल या स्कूल्स बनाए हैं, गो के उसने करोड़ों रुपए के बनाए हैं. So this is not the similar work. Please, the similarity does not mean only the extent. It also means the nature of the projects. So that's why the types of the projects completed is also very important. Experience in local area, length of time in business also show the contractor experience. We sometimes prefer the people from the local areas, but it can be problematic sometimes even. And again, the length of time in the business, because we believe that a contractor who has been in this business for 10 years or more has to be more stronger than a relatively fresh person, and that's why we give him some marks on the year of establishment also. But that does not mean that a contractor who is having a 20 years of life of the company will be better than a person, a contractor or a company which is 10 years old. More other important attributes shall be considered or must be considered. Now, the other criteria, the multi-bid selection methods can be the resources, like the physical and human resources, the kind of machinery and equipment which the contractor has, and then the people who are working with him. We will discuss this in the later part of why it's important. And what is the current load or current projects in hand with him, and whether the resources will be available with the contractor for this project or not. So sometimes a good number of projects or a large number of projects in head may create disadvantage sometimes. The past client and contractor, serious past disagreements and disputes cause deteriorations in mutual trust, transfer of relationship information, and willingness to compromise are weak-ended. Safety performance, the poor safety awareness, safety precautions, and policy are a huge cost and may result in delays. Now, this is very unfortunate that in Pakistan, so far, we have not included the safety as a part of the pre-qualification because there is no well-defined assessments. But I think in the world, in the global projects, you would see that the safety performance of the project is very important. और वो ये देखते हैं कि अगर इस फर्म ने कोई प्रोजेक्ट्स इस तरह के किए हैं तो क्लाइंट से सेफ्टी परफॉर्मेंस पे भी अलग रिपोर्ट लेते हैं कि फॉर एग्जांपल हाउ दे यूज द डिफरेंट प्रोटोकॉल्स ऑफ साइट सेफ्टी, हाउ द different environmental and social safety paradigms were used, how the personal protection equipments were used by the labor, like use of helmets, use of the goggles, use of the gloves, and other kinds of safety equipments, which are very important, the gumshoes. So this kind of performance is really very important, but unfortunately, in Pakistan, it's very overlooked, and that's why relatively the accident rate is very high in Pakistan projects. The reason is that it's not, unfortunately, it's not reported. क्योंकि होता ये है कि अगर कोई साइट पे जख्मी होता है या जो है वो मर जाता है तो ठेकेदार फौरन उसके घर जाके उसको 2-4 लाख रुपए दे के उसको न तो रिपोर्ट होती है ये चीजें, न कोई FIR दर्ज होता है, न कोई इंश्योरेंस बेचारे को मिलती है। तो हमारे यहाँ ये समझा जाता है कि शायद एक्सीडेंट्स, साइट एक्सीडेंट्स या प्रोजेक्ट एक्सीडेंट्स इतने ज्यादा नहीं है, बट आई थिंक इट्स बिगर इन नंबर, but more unfortunate is that it is not reported and people are बाहर की दुनिया में it's very important that such kind of accidents are averted and we have a very proper safety mechanism at sites which can prevent the another approach which is very common is life cycle costing. Life cycle costing means that you don't have to go for the cheap, rather you have to see that what can be the life cycle costing. For example, it involves all the from design to construction, maintenance, and then disposal. All the cycle of the cost is included. So a life cycle cost perspective, and this is also emphasis by the PEPRA. The PEPRA says that you have to not only take into account the capital price or the bid price in terms of only the initial price. Rather, you should also see, मिसाल के तौर पे आप एक जनरेटर ले रहे हैं तो आप के पास 2 जनरेटर आते हैं, अब एक जनरेटर में अपेरेंटली आपको 20 लाख का मिल रहा है, दूसरा आपको 18 लाख का मिल रहा है, तो आप देख रहे हैं कि जो 18 लाख वाला है वो 2 लाख सस्ता आपको मिल रहा है, बट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इज दैट फॉर एग्जांपल व्हाट इज द पर आवर कंजम्पशन ऑफ those two brands, then whether the supplies are available or not, what is the filter cost, the supplies cost. So all these together we assess normally to see that और इसकी जो design life है वो कितनी है, तो इसकी बुनियाद पे we work out not only the basic price. I remember in many cases in the procurement of equipment, and even in the softwares, we decided the bidding. The ultimate decision was based on the life cycle costing, because it's not only the capital cost which is important in the tools and plants and the machinery and equipments. So the main motivation to use the life cycle costing is to increase the possibility of cost reduction during operations, even if the main spending that means spending somewhat more during planning and development. So if you, and that's why I said it, that it's more relevant to the development projects in softwares. मुझे याद है we were procuring a ERP system for Open University, and that ERP system, when we compared, one of the ERP system was as low as cheap, is just free, and the other was having some very good price. But when we compare the life cycle costing, In fact, the free was much expensive than the other, because the training cost was very high, the upgrade cost was very high, and the deployment cost was very high, though the capital cost was very less or maybe free. So it's like sometime you might have seen that you look at the printer price. तो प्रिंटर की जो कलर प्रिंटर की शायद कीमत चंद हजार रुपए है, लेकिन उसकी टोनर की कीमत जो है वो 50,000 रुपए से ज्यादा है. So when you buy such kind of things, you have to take care of the life cycle cost as well. It's not only the capital cost, but more important is the cartridge cost. It is the repair cost, the availability of people who would be repairing this machine, and so on. In fact, many more or less related concepts exist, such as life cycle assessment, total cost of ownership, whole life cost. तो ये इसके मुख्तलिफ नाम है. Environmental life cycle costing, ELCC, societal life cycle costing, SLCC, and even more methodologies are used to establish cost and benefit associated with those concepts. So as a matter of fact, we don't go only for the initial cost or capital cost, rather we go into much detail. For example, if we are going to determine the environmental cost, this is called sometimes called sustainability assessment, that how this product would be bringing additional troubles and problems to the environment. And that's where the green product and green manufacturing would come, that how this product is using the waste material, how this product is using lesser energy during the life, its life. So when we are going for the energy assessment, then it would become more like a environmental assessment. So depending on the nature of assessment we do, it's very important that we understand that it's not only the initial price which is important. More important is the other prices, which this is just telling you a brief outline of that, how whole life cycle costing or life cycle costing, maybe for example a combination of life cycle costing, non-construction cost like design and development, income, externalities, and then within the life cycle costing you may see the construction, maintenance, operation, occupancy, and end of life or disposal cost. So the life cycle costing has a broader overview or a broader holistic view, that the product which we use or the building which we use has not to only see the capital cost, but we have to see that what can be the construction, maintenance, operation, and occupancy and end of life cost. And that's where the life cycle costing becomes important. We are talking about the machinery equipment. Now, switching to the second part of the lecture, which is more related to the, I'll not go into much detail, but I'll just share with you the example we used in our case, that how pre-qualification of bidder was used. Now, the Pakistan Engineering Council is giving you 4 major attributes. That is financial soundness, which is 30%, then experience 35, and then personnel capability 15, and equipment 20. So this is the total 100 marks model. And this 100 marks model is then further divided into different. For example, how would you give the 35% marks for the experience? So in this, the work completed in last 10 years is given 15 marks. Then project of similar nature in hand, 10 marks. Then experience related to project but not basic part. For example, आपने एक जो है ग्रिड स्टेशन में सिविल वर्क किया, तो वो सिविल वर्क गो के ग्रिड स्टेशन मेनली सिविल वर्क तो नहीं है, लेकिन उसके अंदर जो आपने सिविल वर्क किया है उस तरह का मिलता जुलता, तो वो फिर आपके उसके भी मार्क्स. एंड स्टेटस ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट्स विद द गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स, certainly the more investment would also show that the contractor is having a good leverage. Now, further explaining that, for example, how would you determine the marks if the project are 12 marks are given if the contractor has completed 3 projects of similar nature in last 10 years. अगर आपके मिसाल के तौर पे 200 मिलियन के लिए आप अपने कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को प्री क्वालिफाई कर रहे हैं और उसने पिछले 10 साल में इस तरह के 3 या उससे ज्यादा प्रोजेक्ट किए हैं, तो फिर उसको 12 नंबर मिलेंगे। और अगर 3 से ज्यादा किए हैं तो फिर फार्मूला ये है कि 12 into a/3। मिसाल के तौर पे अगर उसने 2 किए हैं तो फिर हो जाएगा 12 × 2/3, तो इसका मतलब ये हो जाएगा कि उसको 8 मार्क्स मिलेंगे। लेकिन अगर उसके प्रोजेक्ट्स जो है वो 3 से ज्यादा है और 6 से, अगर 6 है तो फिर सारे के सारे मार्क्स मिलेंगे उसको 15 के 15। लेकिन अगर वो 6 से कम है और 3 से ज्यादा है तो 12 + a/6 × 3। फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर उसके 5 प्रोजेक्ट्स किए हैं तो फिर उसको 12 × 5/6 × 3 जो भी आते हैं 15/6, तो वो तकरीबन 14 या 14.5 नंबर उसको मिल जाएंगे। Just this is an example which we did for the pre-qualification of projects, which was having a 200 million. This was an academic complex. This is the largest building we constructed in the Allama Iqbal Open University. It's a 6-story building having 100,000 plus area, square feet area. And the pre-qualification was done, and this is one of the example that this form was registered with Pakistan Engineering Council at that time in 250 million category. It's now a no limit at the moment. The projects which the firm has completed, like the construction of academic blocks, 250 million, construction of regional campus, Jung, 301 million, construction of grid station, Islamabad, 500 million, construction of IT tower, Lahore, 350 million, and so on. So in this case, you see that the projects are more than 3 but less than 6. So we use the formula 12 + a/6 × 3, and ultimately the contractor got 14.5 out of 15 marks. The second attribute is for the projects of similar nature and complexity in hand, and the maximum marks we can give to the contractor is 10. For example, if the project done by the contractor or in hand with the contractor are 3, then he will be given the 8 marks. And if it is less than 3, then 8 into a/3. And if it is more than 3, 8 + a/6 × 2. So this is how you can determine the total marks. And if the projects in head are more than 6, then certainly you will give him the maximum marks, that is 10. So in the same example, we could see that this contractor was having like construction of gymnasium, 300 million, construction of officer club, 301 million, construction of food street at CDA, 205 million, construction of science complex, 350 million. So these were the 4 projects in hand with the contractor, and we, based on that, we developed the total marks, and the contractor got 8.75 out of 10. The third component was the electrical work, which was carried out in last 5 years, which was not part of the major work, but since this also shows the strength of the contractor. So in this kind of work, which is done by the contractor in the last 5 years, we have the 5 marks, and if 4 marks are given if he has done 3 projects, and if it are less than these are less than 3, then 4 into a/3, and then are more than 3, then 4 + a/6 × 1. And this, for this particular firm, they had 2 bigger projects: the construction of substation Islamabad G13 and provision and installation of electrical works.
जी सर।
जी
सर क्वेश्चन ये है, क्या प्रोजेक्ट्स इन हैंड जो है ना सर, अंडर एग्जीक्यूशन अगर किसी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के थ्रू है तो उसका नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट भी हो सकता है, पॉजिटिव भी हो सकता है सर। नेगेटिव इसलिए आपसे कि अभी उसके रिसोर्सेज सारे लगे हुए हैं, HR लगा हुआ, मशीनरी लगी हुई है, तो उसके पास जो है ना ये प्रोजेक्ट करने के लिए शायद चैलेंज हो। तो दूसरी बात यह है कि बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स कर रहा है तो हो सकता है उसके पास रिसोर्सेज ज्यादा हो, तो इस उसमें सिनेरियो जो डेवलप हो रहा है इसमें किस तरीके से हम उसको एवेलुएट करें?
अच्छा, ये I agree with you and I appreciate your comment. Actually, if you look at the perspective of his active engagement in the market, the big number of in-hand project is a credit. But certainly, if we look at the other perspective, that the resources which are available with him, may not be sufficient for the new works. So इसको तो यहाँ हम credit देंगे, लेकिन जब हम resources में जाएंगे वहाँ पे, then we make sure that he has enough resources for this new project. I'll come to that, but we have seen a number of projects like National Construction is a good firm, but for last many years the contractor, if you look at their portfolio, they have a very good balance sheet. But if you look at their portfolio, they don't have any active project, which means that the company is defunct for more than 20 years. And the most of the experience they would show in their brochure or in their pre-qualification document are dating back to 10 years or more. So a contractor having enough number of projects in hand is a strength in this sense that the firm shows that the firm is actively engaged in the market. But certainly, the challenge is that whether the firm, with all these projects in hand, has the capacity to get a new project or not. So we will ensure that in the resources part, which will come after this discussion. Now, the investment record with other organizations is also a very positive attribute, and if the contractor is or the bidder is invested with many organizations, that also shows that the contractor is actively involved. So we give 1 mark for each investment, and for example, in this particular case, the firm was involved, engaged with the PC. PC registration is mandatory. Please remember that if a firm is not registered with PEC as a matter of law, the firm cannot practice the engineering business in Pakistan, and that is mandatory. So PC registration is mandatory, and the others are voluntary. But certainly, if the firm is having large number of pre-qualification and registrations, then certainly it gives the credit to the firm and their credibility. So this particular firm was registered with NHA, Pak PWD, with CDA, CNW Punjab, Aided Agriculture University, Rawalpindi, and so on, and we gave them the maximum marks. So if you just look at the marks of the contractor in the experience marks of 35, you see that he got 30.92 out of 35, and that is very good marks if you look at the experience part. And ultimately, this project was got by this firm as well, because this was a single bid decision. ये उस वक्त की बात है कि जब पेपरा ने इस बात को क्लैरिफाई नहीं किया था कि सिंगल बिड भी, तो we got only 2 bids in this project. One bid was almost 200 something, 205 or something like that. And the other bid was non-serious or non-responsive because they had not attained the earnest money, and they had just attached a cross check, which is not acceptable as a collateral. So we, as a matter of fact, got only 1 bid in this case, and this bid was then referred to the PEPRA, I remember, in those days. And PEPRA then commented that even if there is only 1 bid, and that is procured through the process of the PEPRA, you can accept it. And that was a very good, I think, communication, which I then shared with a large number of organizations. Because prior to that, there was a belief or kind of misbelief that there must be at least 3 bidders. So this was really a big decision for all the organization, and then I shared it with my students also, that even a single bid for a work of 210 million was accepted, or maybe 212 million was accepted based on only 1 responsive bid, because it was obtained or procured through the process. Now, the second part of this is personnel capability. And here your question, which you have asked, that whether the firm will have the capacity for the new projects or not, must be answered. Because we normally say that there must be dedicated staff identified by the firm in the projects. So the project manager, the site staff, the engineers, the sub-engineers must be very well defined by the project. And we have to make sure that this resource is available. I think what I have seen that this is the most compromised part of the projects, that the contractor gave you a large number of engineers data, they give you a large number of the sub-engineers data, but when it comes to the execution, they provide you very little human resource and other resources, and that is where the engineers have to play their role very effectively to make sure that whatever resources have been committed in the pre-qualification document, that must be available at the site, and if not, then certainly we have to take the timely actions, and this is, I think, required for the project. So you have to identify the project specific human resource also, apart from the general human resource. So out of these 15 marks, 9 marks are given to the engineers, and then 6 marks are given to the diploma engineers or associate engineers. And how this 9 marks will be further distributed, that the 3 marks are given for the experience of engineers, and 6 marks are given to the strengths of engineer. For example, for any engineers which have 15 years or more experience, then they will be having at least four number, they will be given 3 marks, and more than 4, it will be worked out like this, and so on. And same is the case with the associate engineer. And I'll give you the example that how we have calculated this in our case. There was engineer A, which is a senior team leader with 25 years experience. There was a deputy team leader. He was engineer having an experience of 20 years. And there was a engineer C, which was having 15 years of experience. And then there were 2 engineers which were having less than 15 years experience. So using this formula, for example, if the 15 years experience, we had only 3 people, so 3 by 4. If it is 4, then you give him 3 marks, and if it's less than 4, then you determine 3 by 4 into 3, and so on. And similarly, the strength of the engineers, they had total of 6 engineers, so 8 by 15 into 6, so they got 3.1 marks. And the total marks which they got out of 9 was 0.35 for the engineers. So this is how you can, but again, the question, very big question is that whether all of these engineers should be available for the project or not. So certainly it's not possible that all these engineers can be available for the project, but I think you should at least identify, or at least in your pre-qualification document, you should ask the bidder or the contractor to identify the people who would be working with you on these projects right from the beginning, so that tomorrow, if you are going for the project execution, you will not be having the problems. क्योंकि होता ये है कि contractor जो है वो काम लेने के बाद अपना एक कई दफा वो इंजीनियर भी नहीं होता, डिप्लोमा इंजीनियर भी नहीं होता कोई। अच्छा, इस चीज को हमने वी डिड इट वेरी वेरी सक्सेसफुली, और ये आप लोगों के लिए भी एक एग्जांपल है कि ये तो हमने कहा कि चले इस पे तो एक फॉर्म प्री क्वालिफाई हो गया, फॉर्म इज प्री क्वालिफाइड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ डेटा गिवन अबाउट द इंजीनियर्स एंड एसोसिएट इंजीनियर्स. And certainly, if it has enough number of engineers and associate engineers, the firm stand qualified. But the more important is that whether the engineers would be available at site or not to check the progress and quality. Then I added a special stipulation, a special condition that a contractor, the successful contractor, will provide at least 1 engineer and 2 associate engineers at site. These will be appointed by the project director in consultation with the contractor, and the salary of these will be paid by the contractor, and if not paid by the contractor, will be deducted from the bill of the contractor and paid by the employer to the contractor. तो हमने इसको इस तरीके से इस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व किया कि हमने कहा कि जी अगर एक प्रोजेक्ट 10 करोड़ का है, तो उसके अंदर एक इंजीनियर जिसकी मिनिमम एक्सपीरियंस 5 साल हो या 10 साल हो, और जिसकी तनख्वाह जो है 1 लाख रुपए या उससे ज्यादा हो, तो उसको कंट्रैक्टर एंगेज करेगा, और इस एंगेजमेंट या अपॉइंटमेंट प्रोसेस में कंट्रैक्टर बाकायदा क्लाइंट और कंट्रैक्टर वो बैठेगा और उसके साथ 2 ओवरसीयर होंगे या 2 एसोसिएट इंजीनियर्स होंगे जो उनके साथ काम करेंगे, उनकी तनख्वाह ये होगी। अच्छा, इसका फायदा 2-3 फायदे हुए। मिसाल के तौर पे स्कर्दू में भी जो काम था उसमें भी एक इंजीनियर और एक डिप्लोमा इंजीनियर हमारा काम कर रहा था, अगर वो लियाकतपुर में भी था, क्योंकि वो लोग जो हम अपॉइंट करते थे वो। दूसरा ये हुआ कि वी प्रोवाइडेड जॉब्स टू मोर देन 25 इंजीनियर्स एंड मे बी 50 ओवरसीयर्स, क्योंकि उनको जब हमने अपने प्रोजेक्ट्स में इस स्पेशल क्लास के अंदर हमने लिया, because the contractor was bound either to provide a full-time engineer at site or appoint an engineer in consultation with the employer. तो इसमें हमने जो है we made a very good success story to employ the और वो जो लोग थे they would directly report to the employer about the progress. तो हमारे अपने स्टाफ चूंकि वहां पे फुल टाइम होना मुमकिन नहीं था रिमोट जगहों पे, लिहाजा हमने अपनी उसको स्ट्रेंथन करने के लिए हमने कहा कि आप एक इंजीनियर और 2 ओवरसीयर लेंगे जिनकी अपॉइंटमेंट प्रोसेस में एक प्रोजेक्ट डायरेक्टर जो है वो आपके साथ बैठेगा, उनकी ये तनख्वाह कम से कम होगी और ये जो है डायरेक्टली प्रोग्रेस की रिपोर्ट जो है वो करेंगे टू दी एम्प्लॉयर, और उनको आप ये फैसिलिटीज देंगे साइट पे, उनकी ऑफिसेज, उनकी मील्स का ख्याल रखना, उनकी पिक एंड ड्रॉप्स, all these facilities should be provided by the employer, and and all this cost should be included in the bid price. We will not pay you any additional cost, and that was, I think, one of the success story we created to monitor the quality, because if you don't have your own staff, enough staff to monitor, then certainly the contractor would not provide you the project specific HR, particularly the engineers and associate engineers. So this is what we did. I think it was for more than 15 or 20 projects we did this as a special conditions, and we tried to make sure that these people are available and they are doing the best job. And I think that was a great work that they would be providing us a daily progress report, and certainly they were not the employees of contractor to be frankly, the contractor was just giving their salary, but they are more like employees of the project and the director, and they were reporting directly to the director. So this is one of the solutions we could deploy to make sure that the contractors are providing enough human resource. The second part is about the associate engineers, and there are 6 marks, and again, it would depend on the experience and the strength. For example, if 8 or more people are having experience of 10 years, then they'll be given 2 marks. And if 20 or more, and this is, we are talking not about the project, we are talking about the firm, about the firm, that the firm has so many employments. So based on this, we then determined these marks, and I think you all are very familiar with these calculations that there were, for example, diploma engineers, 4 people had experience 20 and 15 and 10 and 5 years, and based on that we worked out, and the total marks which were assigned to them was 2.5. Then the equipment capability, which is again very important, that normally we have to see that the kind of equipment we need for the project must be available with the contractor, and you can change the marks as well as the number as per your requirements. For example, in our case, we needed a batching plant, concrete pumps, cranes, booms, dumper trucks, shower loaders, steel cutting, bending machines, concrete transit mixers, and so on. So based on this, you give him 20 marks. The 20 marks is the maximum marks. अब इसमें जो प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है वो 2-3 प्रॉब्लम है कि it's not possible that all these equipment is owned by the contractor. तो फिर क्या हो अगर ये उसकी ओनरशिप नहीं है, तो क्या सिर्फ एक स्टाम्प पेपर देने से क्या हम इस बात को समझ जाए कि ये चीजें सारी उसके पास है? तो हमने इसमें ये जरूरी किया कि उसके पास कोई एग्रीमेंट हो, लीज एग्रीमेंट हो, और वो नोटराइज्ड हो, और वो लीज एग्रीमेंट उसको रजिस्टर्ड लीज एग्रीमेंट हो कि जिसमें दो उसने कोई लीज के लिए कहा कि जी या तो उसके पास अपना जाती ये चीज अवेलेबल हो, अगर वो नहीं है, शटरिंग है, स्कैफोल्डिंग है, फार्म वर्क है, अगर वो नहीं है, वो कुछ चीजें आपको एसेंशियली चाहिए, कुछ चीजें आपको जरूरी नहीं है कि वो उसकी मालियत मिल्कियत में हो, तो अगर वो उस सूरत में उसके पास कोई ऐसा प्रूफ हो जिसकी बुनियाद पे वो आपको एविडेंस दे सके कि ये उन्होंने कोई एग्रीमेंट किया है, तो उस सूरत में भी ये क्रेडिट उनको दिया जा सकता है। तो इस फर्म के साथ डंपर ट्रक एक था, शावल डोजर बेकहो एक था, कंक्रीट मिक्सर 10 थे, कंक्रीट लेफ्ट 10 थे, कॉम्पैक्टर या कंप्रेसर 2 थे, स्टील कटिंग मशीन एक थी और एक स्कैफोल्डिंग उनके पास 25,000 स्क्वायर फुट की थी, फार्म वर्क। तो इसको जब हमने वर्कआउट किया तो इसको हमें जो रिक्वायर्ड क्वांटिटी थी, फॉर एग्जांपल डंपर ट्रक की 2 हमने कही थी उसके पास थी, तो उसको 10 मार्क्स मिल गए। कंक्रीट मिक्सर के उसके पास 10 थे, हमारी रिक्वायर्ड भी 10 थे, तो 10 के 10 मार्क्स मर गए। उसके पास क्वांटिटी अवेलेबल जो थी वो 15 थी। कंक्रीट लेफ्ट हमने 10 मांगे, उसके पास 8 थे, तो उसको 8 मार्क्स मिल गए। शावल डोजर्स वगैरह जो उसके पास हमने 2 मांगे, 20 मार्क्स दिए, उसके पास 1 था, तो हमने उसके जो आधे मार्क्स दे दिए, एंड सो ऑन। तो इसको जब हमने टोटल किया तो ही गॉट 64.2 आउट ऑफ 100, और चूंकि टोटल मार्क्स मशीनरी इक्विपमेंट के 20 थे, तो लिहाजा इसने इस मद में उसको 12.84 मार्क्स मिल गए। सो दिस वाज दी जो लास्ट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इज फाइनेंशियल साउंडनेस। अब ये जो है सबसे मुश्किल है, बिकॉज जीबी में मैंने देखा है कि द बिगेस्ट प्रॉब्लम द कॉन्ट्रैक्टर फेस इज देयर वर्किंग कैपिटल रिक्वायरमेंट. Most of the time their credit line is not existing, they don't have the available जो इनका होता है what we call it the financial statements जो है, और इनके जो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स हैं उनकी रिपोर्ट्स नहीं मिलती. सो दिस इज रियली वेरी चैलेंजिंग. गो के इसके सबसे ज्यादा मार्क्स है 30 मार्क्स आफ्टर द एक्सपीरियंस कम्स फॉर द फाइनेंशियल साउंडनेस, और उसमें एक जो है कि 5 मार्क्स हम क्रेडिट लाइन जो उनके पास है कि अगर उनकी क्रेडिट लाइन 500 मिलियन या 50 करोड़ रुपए है कि तो 3 मार्क्स मिलेंगे, अगर उससे ज्यादा है, कम है, तो अगर वो 1000 मिलियन या 1 बिलियन का क्रेडिट लाइन है तो फिर सारे मार्क्स मिलेंगे. तो बहरहाल ये is a big challenge because in most of the cases we don't see a very good credit line with the contractors. Working capital in last 3 years के उनकी जो आपका जो प्रोजेक्ट है उनका एनुअल टर्नओवर और वर्किंग कैपिटल लास्ट 3 साल में क्या रहा, और उस पे 5 मार्क्स है. रजिस्ट्रेशन विद इनकम टैक्स, दिस इज 5 मार्क्स. कॉपी ऑफ वैलिड इलेक्ट्रिकल लाइसेंस, सब कंट्रैक्टर 5 मार्क्स. लिटिगेशन हिस्ट्री, ब्लैक लिस्टिंग, ये माइनस होंगे, एंड ऑल दीज टुगेदर. तो इस कंट्रैक्टर को जब हमने देखा तो they had a credit line of 400 million. Working capital average इनका जो था as per the audit report was 100 million. Registration with income tax was existing and there was a JV license available with them for the major electrical works. Based on that, we worked out their marks. Out of 20, they got say 14.7 marks. And finally, the final snapshot of this contractor is that they had 30.92 marks in experience, 7.82 marks in human resource, and 12.84 marks in equipment, and 14.7870 marks in, and a total marks they got in the pre-qualified was 68.78. Our requirement was 50% as per the PEC. So we pre-qualified this firm, and ultimately he was the only firm who could get this project. We pre-qualified about 10 contractors because this was a relatively bigger and complex project. I think the largest project we did in the Allama Iqbal University in the civil works, which was about 200 million, estimated cost was 200 million. And this was the largest project we did at that time. Maybe I still believe that there has not been any other project of this volume in Allama Iqbal University so far. I think with this, I will close here, and I would like to see that what are the comments on this process so far. If anyone want to comment or share their experience with us, so the floor is open for discussion.
Sir,
Haji, please carry on, please.
Sir, it was very wonderfully explained each and everything. Yes, we have to look into in detail once we go back home. Otherwise, the crux, we have understood the crux which your good self has mentioned in your lecture, sir. So now the class is requesting to have a break of 20 minutes, sir. After that, we will be back, sir.
I think it's better to have the break now, and then it will be followed by the class test, which is about the first 3 lectures. So thank you very much. Have a nice time. Thank you very much. Have your break. Sir. I'll also take a cup of tea, and then at 1200 hours, I'll not be there, but Khurshid Saab would be administering the test. Thank you very much. Have a nice time.
Sir, there is a question, sir.
Ji, farmaiye.
Sir, the first question is, what should be the criteria for the passing marks, sir? कितने होने चाहिए, sir, minimum, sir?
If you go by the, and my advice, Mary aapko because we faced a lot of problems when we went into the details. So pehla to ye hai ki go by the PEC pre-qualification mechanism. Don't change it, because if you change it, it will become a problem for you, number one. And the PEC bidding document, pre-qualification document says 50% marks is the threshold for the pre-qualification. ठीक है, आपका जवाब मिल गया ना?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, thank you.